In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian's Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is Drew Hill, joined as always by Chris Herrington. Chris now back in the beautiful city of Memphis, Tennessee.
The most beautiful land in the world. I think we've been told.
Beautiful land in the world.
Beautiful land in the world. Here we are.
Yeah. Fun, by the way, the person who got that clip, an all-time Memphis clip, if you don't know what we're talking about, then just you can ignore this.
Not quite back it up, Terry, but it's way up there.
Yeah, not quite back it up, Terry. That's a good one. The person who got that clip is Suda Upadea.
Oh, yeah.
Good friend of mine.
Shout out to that guy.
Good friend of mine. I think he's now doing CBS Sports HQ and stuff on TV.
Okay.
He was like a WWE play-by-play for a little bit.
I remember him. I met him. I didn't know him, but I met him.
Great guy. So shout out to Sudo. Before we talk Grizzlies, I do want to tell you, it's my understanding that we've already had several signups, but we are doing dozens. Thank you. We are doing a panel, a roundtable discussion at Wiseacre on March the 31st. It's a
Wiseacre downtown.
Yes, Wiseacre downtown. The event is free, but it has a suggested donation, and you can get the link for the registration in this podcast episode description. So we'll
also include it in the copy if you listen on DailyMemphian.com.
Okay, there you go. Podcast producer Natalie says it'll also
that's
be
the voice
in
of
the
Natalie
copy.
Van Gundy you faintly hear. And I got to say, when I was driving down yesterday, I was listening to one of the Soundbites podcasts. Great job by Holly Whitfield. And I heard Natalie chirp in, and I thought to myself, as I always do, Natalie, get a microphone.
Yeah, Natalie.
You need a microphone.
You need to get your Grizzlies takes off.
That's right.
You know? Everyone wants to know what you think of the Memphis Grizzlies. How upset are you that Ja Morant is out for the remainder of the season? Because people are upset. I can tell you that. Womp womp was the answer.
We're getting Natalie a microphone at some point, whether she likes it or not.
Yes, that is coming soon. Anyway, you can get the information for that event online on our website or in the podcast description if you would like to be there and ask some Grizzlies questions and hang out and drink some beer at Wiseacre, which sounds like a good time to me. I will be there. Chris will be there. We will also have our Tigers beat writers, Frank and Parth, there as well. So Tigers fan, Grizzlies fan, whatever questions you want to ask, feel free to come down there, and it will be hosted by Jeff Calkins.
Yep.
So a Memphis sports media legend. So that will be a good time. Okay, onward to the Grizzlies, who played a game last night against the San Antonio Spurs. I was in the building. That was unlike any Grizzlies game I think I've ever watched. Specifically the first 8 minutes of the game.
Right.
Spurs were just clowning. Like, the Spurs were clowning in the first 8 minutes of that game. It was dunk after dunk. The first possession was a Wemby alley-oop lob, and then it was another Wemby dunk where he had Javon Small guarding him on the perimeter, which, like, visually was just unfair. And then you had the Castle obliteration of Taylor Hendricks, and then another Castle windmill, and even Julian Champagny was in on the action, dunking on Taylor Hendricks, and it was just a wild, wild game. I'm not saying that from the perspective of like, wow, what a terrible performance by the Grizzlies. The first 8 minutes were really bad. Spurs looked insanely good in those first 8 minutes.
They might be the second best team in the league. Might be the best team in the league. I mean, the Wemby playoffs are going to be a sight to behold. Let me ask you this, because I was not there. I was still making my way into town last night. So in the dozen games before the Grizzlies' recent game at Charlotte, because before this game last night, they were at Atlanta, at Charlotte, these 3 games. So in the dozen games leading up to the game at Charlotte, the Grizzlies had either won, not much, but they'd won a few, that either won or lost by single digits in 8 of 12 games. So 8 of 12 games are either wins or single-digit losses. Only one of those games was a loss by more than 20 points. The last 3 games, 23-point loss at Charlotte, 39-point loss at Atlanta, 25-point loss at home against the Spurs. Have we transitioned from the feisty tanking team, the feisty pivoting towards the future team, the feisty moving forward team?
Feisty turning the page.
Have we pivoted from the feisty pivoting team to the 1-2-3 Cancun portion of the season?
No, they're just playing good teams now.
Okay. That's a good answer, because you're at Charlotte, at Atlanta, home against the Spurs. All 3 of those teams got stuff to play for, and those are teams trying to hit their groove at the right time of the year.
Yeah, the Grizzlies have a very difficult schedule the rest of the way, too, so it may be more of this. I don't think – yeah, I mean, I think it has more to do with the opponent than it does have to do with the Grizzlies. To
your point, it settled down after that first rush in the first quarter.
Yeah, and I think that was like a forced thing. It was actually something that Gigi Jackson brought up, and I want to get to the Gigi and Wemby exchange in a minute, but it was something Gigi Jackson brought up where the first 8 minutes were so demoralizing of that game that everybody was just kind of like pouting and moping on the bench. And it took, according to Gigi, Ja, Ty Jerome, and Taj Gibson, as well as Brian Penny Collins, the assistant, basically chewing the team out, saying, you can't go out here and not have any fun. You're playing basketball.
Right.
Like, you can't just mope, right? And so I think that might have woken the team up a little bit, and they settled in a little bit and made a few shots. But again, like, it was just... I know it means nothing because of who was on the court for the Grizzlies, but to me, I just came away from that game thinking the Spurs really look like a Death Star right now. They look so good. Castle is so much better, it feels like, this season than he was even a season ago. And Wembanyama has a different type of game. I mean, I can remember going to some of the, Grizzlies Spurs game. I remember one game in San Antonio specifically where he was just doing everything on the perimeter. He wasn't really playing on the interior at all. And that's starting to change. I know he's still on the perimeter quite a bit. And then the way he impacts the game defensively is absurd. And I don't want to make this like an MVP conversation, but I do think it's interesting when you look at him versus SGA, because obviously I think the totality of the numbers are probably going to favor SGA offensively.
Right.
But just pure impact, like just eyeball test who impacts the game more, it's clearly Wembanyama.
He is a one-man defense all by himself.
Right.
On top of being like a super impactful offensive player, he is by himself an elite defense.
Gigi had tons of great stuff to say after that game. I thought it was a really fun interview, even after a game that went the way that it did. And he one of the things he said is Wemby's just out there BSing on defense. Like, he lets you go past him on purpose because he knows he's about to just swat the heck out of you as soon as you get to the rim. Like, He makes you think you're going to have an easy shot and you don't think that there's any possible way he's going to block it, but really it's still an easy block for the guy. And so to me, when you just look at eyeball impact, what guys are impacting the game more, you can't shoot on the same side of the floor as Victor Wembanyama. You can't shoot. It's ridiculous how good he is already. I think it's interesting.
It feels like, and you never know, right? As Grizzlies fans know better than anyone. You never know what's going to come in the future, right? You can't assume things. But it feels like, SGA probably wins the MVP this year. Maybe the Thunder squeak through. Maybe they get their back-to-back title. It feels like get it now, because we may be going on one of these historic, Kareem, Wilt, whatever kind of runs where Wemby is just going to reach out and dominate this whole thing for the next 5 years,
Do you think that is factored into the Grizzlies' decision to rebuild at all? Obviously, it wasn't working.
I don't, because I think
what do we make of the timing of the Grizzlies' choice to rebuild, given what's the state of the West? That's a good question.
I don't think it's related to that, because I think if it were a thing where they were consistently, if they were and they felt like they would continue to be a consistent, first round playoff team, second round playoff team, but not good enough to get beyond that, right? Which is sort of what they were in the grit and grind era and what it looked like they were shaping up to be in this era. Then maybe you look at that and say, well, we can't break through because it wasn't that. It was we can't get to that level anymore because the player that this whole thing is predicated on, like, won't be on the floor playing at that level. And now we have to face this extension. It's all the stuff we've talked about. I think that stuff just drove it way beyond the context around it. Yeah, I
know. But speaking of the context around it now, like if the Grizzlies,
but it may have been an incentive anyway, to your point.
Right.
It could have been.
I don't know if we're just talking about the Death Star Spurs, right?
Yeah.
If that turns out to be what they are, it's going to be hard to compete with that in the next 3 to 4 years.
My thing, and this is my thing from day one of NBA basketball in Memphis, it will continue to be my thing. Man, it's fun to be a second round playoff team. Like, not many teams get there, you know? And so, if you tell me, like, you can't scale Mount Wimby and that will block you from winning your title, like, okay. And there's 30 teams in the league. There's about to be 32, What happens
when he gets hurt one year?
Right.
Like, there will be doors.
I'm in favor of being good if you can be good and staying good as long as you can.
Yep.
I think people can disagree about this reasonably about the Grizzlies, but I think they concluded they just couldn't be good at a good enough level anymore with what they had based on their issues. I don't think it was about Wemby.
Yeah, it's interesting, not to sidetrack the pod too much, but there's some Grizzlies fans that are extremely frustrated with the choice to rebuild, and specifically Zach Kleiman, and it just pops up. And I think something that is, that continually gets brought up as well is like, well, when are you guys going to criticize Zach Kleiman for this? Like, when are you going to hold Zach Kleiman accountable for this? And Zach talked about his decision, and we asked him hard questions after he traded Jaren Jackson Jr. away. He'll talk again at the end of the season. I would say if you are looking at the totality of this picture, this decision to rebuild, you could make the argument that this is too late, that this was too late.
Yeah.
To blow it up when you knew it wasn't going to work or you didn't have the high end.
I agree. The only thing is that it always is. Whenever that decision happens, it's always you look back and it would have been better to do it 2 years before, but you didn't know that. The grit and grind era, which everyone looks back on so fondly, probably went 2 years longer than it needed to because those last 2 years weren't that good, and like it would have been more productive to get on with it once you realize, but you just didn't, right? And no one was critical of that at the time, but I know people who were involved in were like, I wish we could have gotten an earlier start on that,
Yeah. No, and everybody holds their piece of the puzzle. Like Zach Kleiman by no means is without any blame through this process that clearly didn't work out.
So we'll tease this a little bit. I'm working on a series that I'm not sure when it's going to start. It's not up now. It won't be this week because it's Thursday right now. So as we record, it might be next week that it starts. I'm working on a series that'll look back over the entire tenure of the Kleiman-led front office. We always talk about it in terms of one person. It's one person who's leading a whole organization. Other people are involved. But the Kleiman-led front office, that looks back over that and sort of breaks it into components and sort of evaluates the components. I think fairly over the course of the whole series. If you're someone who just has your knives out and wants people to be super critical of Zach Kleiman, you're not going to enjoy the first part of the series because the first part of the series is strictly about the draft, which I think most people would say has been the strongest part of that front office's tenure. I think when you get into trade and free agency and personality management and some of that, then you get to a lot more questions.
Yes. And so when we talk about criticism, right, and what criticism, why don't you – I think that is not true. Like, I think I have been critical of certain things. One of those things that I've mentioned on this podcast before, something you just alluded to, is the people management, right?
That's one of the areas of most. It's one of the less tangible. You can look at a draft pick and say you hit it or you didn't hit it.
Yeah,
that's a little more amorphous with the personality management. But I think there's a real area of that is an area where I think they need to be better going forward. I
think there were efforts made to try to get Ja back on track, whether that be the Marcus Smart thing, the Derrick Rose thing, whatever it was.
Right,
didn't work. So like that to me is where criticism, I think, is fair, and you can really ask. You can ask if that has been a strength. of the organization. And then the other thing is just like, ultimately, if the Grizzlies have been dealing with all these injuries, now I really have sidetracked the pod, but ultimately, if the Grizzlies have been dealing with all these injuries, he is the person responsible for building the roster. And so if you have to some degree, injuries are luck. They can be bad luck. It can be good luck if your team stays healthy over the course of the season. The Spurs have had pretty good injury luck this season.
Right.
But you also have to factor in risk based on which players you bring in, like the Justice Winslow thing, the Marcus Smart thing, players with injuries that didn't play.
Ty Jerome.
So,
I think that was a good signing still.
I do too.
But it was a signing that brought in injury risk, and then you had an injury problem.
Right. So no one, for the people out there that are like wanting to have the knives out, as you said, I don't think I think there's lots of pieces to this puzzle. I don't think anyone within the organization goes without blame. So that's just not true. But it's been interesting to see the way that several Grizzlies fans have reacted, because it feels like there is a big split right now between people that are just frustrated that the team is in the state that it's in and people that are now starting to get excited for the draft. And so I would.
Is that your segue?
I guess that's a little bit of a segue. We never got to the Gigi Jackson stuff.
Let's roll it back.
Let's dial it back. I totally sidetracked everything there. My apologies. But we had an exchange last night early in the third quarter, like in the first minute of the third quarter, where Gigi Jackson crossed over a defender, drove to the basket. Wemby was late to help, and Gigi threw down a left-handed dunk on a late contest around Wembanyama.
Yeah. That I think that's an accurate assessment of it. It's more of a quickness thing. That he got to the spot. He beat him to the spot, really.
Right. Yeah. And so crowd gets into it, and it lasts 14 seconds because we go back to the other end. Wembanyama gets the ball on the perimeter, pump fakes, drives to the basket, and posterizes Gigi Jackson right back. And the reaction, even if you're listening to Pete and Brevin on the highlights, like even Brevin was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like the way that the dog and I will say, the angle. And DeMichael and I were talking about this last night. The angle on TV was really good for Gigi Jackson because the angle from the side angle, not the straightaway angle. Because the angle from the side was much, much worse. Like it was absurd that Wembanyama was able to dunk that ball because he was so far away from the basket.
He started from like the 3-point line on the drive.
But his arms are so long. And so I just wanted to give Gigi Jackson some credit on this podcast because he was an extremely good sport about it last night. And he's really a breath of fresh air in that locker room a lot of these nights when things don't go well, because he's always got like the bubbly personality. And I think, that's something that the team needs, honestly, is some positive energy. And he laughed last night and said, the only reason I tried to block it was because I knew it would be crazy if I did. And the coaches might have pulled me out the game if I didn't try to contest it, but my teammates probably told me that I made the wrong decision to try to block him. And he was like, "It's cool. I'll be on Victor Wembanyama's career highlights at his Hall of Fame speech."
You'll have a lot of company. You have a lot of company.
Yeah.
On those highlights.
Yeah, I know. He won't be the first or the last Memphis Grizzlies player to get embarrassed by Victor Wembanyama. So I wanted to give Gigi some credit on the podcast because I thought that he handled it really well last night. And sometimes it can be rough when you're on the receiving end of some highlights like that. But he was really funny and good about it. Do we now want to pivot to the next draft conversation?
Yeah. You want to talk about the tourney or do some tankathon talk, standings talk first?
Let's do some tankathon talk, but first let's take a break for a message from our sponsor.
Want to make a big impact without getting lost in a big system? Join Youth Villages to be a force for families while becoming part of one. Help make positive changes on a national scale, one community at a time. It takes a family to transform lives. Start with yours. Apply now at youthvillages.org/careers.
Before we do a spin, I just want to gaze upon the glory as it currently stands. It it might not get worse. It might stay like this when the season ends, but it's probably not going to get better than it is today. This is a stop the steal, stop the count. We need to end the season now and preserve this current lottery standings where the Grizzlies are 7th and 13th pre-lottery. With Orlando's currently in 10th after last night in the East. They'd still need to lose a play-in game to ensure that spot. But on the road at Charlotte in a play-in game, they could be 13th going into the lottery. Grizzlies could still move up to 6th, but that doesn't seem likely to me. So 7 and 13, let's take it. Let's nail it down and do the lottery now and make it count.
Yeah, I think now, as much as you might be watching the Grizzlies, you need to be watching the Suns and the Magic, because the Suns and the Magic are in very interesting positions. And the Grizzlies, of course, own the Magic's first round pick this season, and that is that includes a potential swap with Phoenix. So the Grizzlies will have the two best picks between their own Phoenix and Orlando. So you are really cheering for Orlando or Phoenix to miss the playoffs and be part of this lottery.
Yep.
If that happens, you
not only is your second pick insured to move up a few spots and be in a little bit better range, but you got a chance. You got a chance for one of those picks to jump up into the top 4.
You do have a chance. I did the tankathon spin last night when I got home from the game enough times to where I did get the Grizzlies at the number 1 and number 2 overall pick.
I was going to give up after about, I texted you my screen capture of this last night. I was going to give up after 3 or 4, and as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly, WKRP reference. My second click, I got the Grizzlies with the 3rd and 4th picks.
I mean, that would be amazing if that were to happen. So Orlando,
we're probably not going to be so lucky today when we do our simulation.
Yeah. Orlando is in a very tight race in the East. I wrote about it over at the Daily Memphian, and I also wrote about lottery odds and sort of laid it all out and said, look, if the Magic miss the playoffs or the Suns miss the playoffs, you'd increase your chances at the top 4 by this percent. I'm not going to get into all of that. It's very in detail. But you can go read about that if you want.
That stuff is better to read. That is one thing that is better to read than to listen to, is complicated stuff like that being explained.
But just know the Magic and the Suns both in position to potentially be in the play-in. Suns probably going to be the 7 in the play-in. The hope there is you get Kawhi and Darius Garland healthy and they play and lose, and then all of a sudden Steph comes back and you never know what could happen, or Portland's desperate to make the playoffs and maybe you get a good result there. I will say Portland and the Clippers over the last 2 weeks, if you go look at cleaning the glass, have been pretty good.
Yeah.
And then Orlando, which I don't know if they played last night. I don't think they did. They've lost 6 in a row.
They are currently the 10. They would, if it ended today, and it might not. There's a lot of volatility there. They could jump back up. But if it ended today, they'd be at Charlotte in an elimination play-in game.
And Charlotte, by the way,
is good.
Looks incredible. They are we talked about last year how, because cleaning the glass also does, based on efficiency, your expected wins over the course of a season. We talked about how the Grizzlies, because they lost so many of those close games during the stretch in February, that they ended up with, I think, 3 or 4 fewer wins than they, on average, probably would have finished with based on their performance and their efficiency. Charlotte is the 7th best team in point differential, according to Cleaning the Glass this season. So they're above Denver, above Minnesota. They're very, very good. Above Cleveland, they're very, very good. Better than certainly what their seed is. They also had 8 fewer expected wins than you would think than they would have on average based on their point differential. So, I mean, they are much, much better than a 9 seed in the East. So that's the hope, right? You get Orlando playing against Charlotte in an elimination game. That would be very, very good news, I think, for the Grizzlies in terms of getting a team in the lottery. All right, you want to do a spin?
Let's do a spin.
Here we go. Oh, my goodness.
Maybe we're going with you.
We're not taking mine.
Oh,
I have a crazy result, but it's not the one that I think we want.
Okay, well, so I've got the Grizzlies. With the Grizzlies picks, I've got the second pick staying at 13, and then the first pick moving down a spot to 8. But this is a good illustration how this is a good pre-lottery situation because even in a bad spin, not the worst spin, but even in a bad spin, you're picking 8 and 13. That's pretty good. But my spin has it Sacramento 1, Utah 2, Atlanta via the Bucks pick 3, and the Pacers 4. So I don't like that. 2 Western Conference teams jumping up, Grizzlies moving down a spot.
I have the single most unlikely scenario happening in the lottery. I have the Charlotte Hornets jumping 13 spots to the number 1 overall pick. And then the Jazz after that, the Sacramento Kings 3rd, the Warriors 4th. So exactly the opposite of what we would want.
Yeah, but no, these are illustrations though, because those are big jumps from Charlotte and Golden State. Those are the kind of jumps that like could end up being like an Orlando pick jumping up or a Phoenix pick jumping up, you know?
Right. That's why you really want those teams to miss the playoffs. So I have the Grizzlies picking 9 and 14.
I don't like that.
That'd be pretty terrible.
I don't like that.
But there you go. You have a team from the bottom jumping up to the top. And that happened last year in the actual lottery, not a simulation with the Mavericks.
Right.
So, you need to be cheering against the Magic as much as you're cheering for the
Grizzlies. It sounds like
right
this may be the last chance for something like that to happen. We'll see what kind of a lot of new rules get into place next year.
That's also an interesting thing to me in terms of the jaw stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think that if they change the lottery system and they flatten the odds to where, some of these teams that might be on the back end of the lottery or even towards the middle of the lottery, if it's less likely that they're going to jump up and get a top 5 pick, do you think those teams in terms of team building would be more willing to go out and try to sign players that are like fringe level all-star players or trade for players that are good players but not all-star level players? Would they be more willing to do so if the draft is de-incentivized?
Maybe. I think the only thing there is that not many teams in the middle of the summer feel like, they're focused on like they believe they're going to be bad next year. I think hope springs eternal, but I do think there could be something to that. But the other thing is that I do think I'll be interested. I think the lottery could matter to the Ja Morant situation this summer because there's this group, and we'll talk about this maybe in a minute when we talk about the tournament. There's this group of guards that are very highly thought of in that top 8, 9, 10 picks, depending on what you think about Mikal Brown and Braden Burries. Like 3 of them seem like solid top 7, 8. You have these other 2 guys. Like what teams, and maybe some people have LeBaron Pylon in that group too, but are there going to be teams out there that miss out on that portion of the draft, have a need at point guard, and want to be good next season? And then I can think of a couple teams like Chicago could fit, Portland could fit. Like there are teams that could fit that, teams that aren't going to be in that lottery, but you wonder about like Miami and Toronto that like sort of don't have that position wrapped up and aren't gonna be getting those guys out of the draft either. You wonder if when it all shakes loose, there are teams that have that need and want to be good, and then you look up and like, maybe how much of a gamble is it if the cost isn't that high,
Yeah, I agree. I think that it could have a real impact especially, if the lottery odds are change to something like you proposed earlier, where everyone's going to have the same amount.
But to your point, though, think about teams that go the other way, right? Because people don't see point guards in that top 4 for the most part. So what if you're a team that doesn't have your point guard situation wrapped up, like Sacramento? Like Brooklyn, maybe. I know they just drafted a bunch of guards, but none of them look like the answer. If you're one of those teams and you jump up in the top 4,
Milwaukee.
but you're taking, you're one of these teams you jump up, but you're taking, Cameron Boozer, you're taking AJ Demansa, whatever. You still have this need at guard, and you want to be good, and you don't have faith you're necessarily going to be able to fix it in the draft. Maybe that's, maybe those teams too.
Yeah. So that'll be something to watch. Maybe it changes the situation slightly.
It's the teams that come out of the draft with Darius Acuff and Kingston Flemings and whatever who are not going to be trading for Ja Morant. Clearly.
We did get news real quick before the tournament. We did get news that the NBA is going to expand to 32 teams.
It's still not a certainty. They're going to.
It was approved.
What they approved was to take bids, and then they will vote on the bids. So expansion has not been approved, but it seems they're heading that. There's going to be a vote on specific expansion bids. It seems like it's headed that way. Yeah.
That means we may eventually be headed for an expansion draft.
Yep.
Just for fun. I was thinking about it. I believe in 2004, when the Charlotte Bobcats were added as an expansion team, they allowed teams to protect like 8 players.
Right.
You had to leave one player available
right.
for the expansion draft. So let's say you only had 7 players signed for the following season. You could only protect 6 in that case.
Right.
Have you thought about just a total hypothetical? I was doing it the other day. I didn't get too far into it. And I know you do the exercise at the end of the season where you sort of rank players based on value.
Yeah.
Have you thought
talk about it in terms that's
Yeah.
been my lead into that. Imagine there's an expansion draft this summer, right? That will not be theoretical in a few years.
Yeah, it won't be. So have you had the chance yet to think about like who the Grizzlies would protect? This is purely hypothetical. Like if it were to happen this offseason.
If it happened this offseason, it would be a fascinating expansion draft for the Grizzlies because I think they would leave Ja Morant unprotected in an expansion draft. Because that's not, remember the situation last year where there was reporting of teams wanting them to attach a pick and they wouldn't attach a pick? Well, those were situations where they were going to have to take back money they didn't necessarily want. This would be a situation where the contract just goes poof and just disappears. You know, I think they would leave Morant unprotected, and then would an expansion team be interested in that? Because that's a lot of star power, right? Maybe they wouldn't leave him. Maybe they have enough faith they can get value in return. They wouldn't leave him. To me, the question of whether you leave Morant out there in an expansion draft would be interesting. They're not going to have to face that because that's 3 years away. But they also have a lot of players like on decent contracts. You're going to have to leave some vulnerable. So I did my list of 8. Do you want to go through it? Do you have yours or?
I don't have a list of 8 right in front of me.
Well,
Why don't we start with you?
You tell me if you disagree, right?
Sure. I'm going to pull the roster up right now.
So Cedric Howard obviously is protected. Zach Edey is protected. I think Ty Jerome's protected because whether you're bringing him into the team next season or not, he's got value as a trade chip. So Ty Jerome is protected. I think Jalen Wells is protected. To me, those are the 4 that are sort of inarguable, and Jalen Wells has been starting for 2 years. I think Scottie Pippen, 2 years left at like a total of $5 million. To me, that's protected. Cam Spencer, 3 years left at a total of $8 million is protected. I'm up to 6. I think even though the contract's maybe a little big and there's a little bit out of sight, out of mind because he hasn't been playing lately, I think Santi Aldama's protected because you had a team option on the back end of that. Now you're up to 7, and I know a lot of people will think I'm coming in late with this one, but he is on the list. Gigi Jackson is protected. I'm only getting to him late because you only have him under contract for 1 more year, and he's headed to unrestricted free agency. If you had longer team control of him, he would be higher on my list. But he's headed under still. You're protecting him. It's 1 year, $3 million left. So to me, that's the 8, which means like the two guys you just traded for, Taylor Hendricks and Walter Clayton, are available in an expansion draft. Max Prosper, available in an expansion draft. One thing that will be different.
Scottie Pippen.
No, I protected Pippen.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I protected Pippen. One thing that might be different this time, the last time the NBA did an expansion draft was before 2-way contracts existed. So they're going to have to decide, are 2-way guys eligible for expansion draft or not? If they are, then Javon Small, I just left available in an expansion draft, right? Those are pretty good. Javon Small, Taylor Hendricks, Walter Clayton. Those are pretty good guys for teams to take in an expansion draft.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating when it comes to that. And I imagine there will be maneuvering by the teams around the league knowing that this is coming.
What are the things
and you're adding 2 teams. You're not adding 1.
One of the things that always happens in these, and again, it'll be a couple years away, but it will come. 2 kinds of things happen. Sometimes you want teams to take a player because you want to get them off your books and you will incentivize them taking a player. So you may give them a draft pick or 2 draft picks and say, maybe it's not even Ja Morant. Maybe it's like, we'll give you 3 second-round picks if you take Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in the expansion draft, and then that $20 million disappears, right? And sometimes it goes the other way where you're not trying to get rid of a guy. You're trying to protect another guy you can't protect. So it may be that you're doing that not to get rid of, say, the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope contract, but to not lose Taylor Hendricks or Walter Clayton or whatever. Like, so there will be the teams that are the expansion teams will not use that draft even. Now, they won't even use it primarily to accrue talent by selecting players in the draft. They'll use it as leverage to acquire draft picks. And there'll be a lot of like getting draft picks to pick players or not pick players from certain teams.
Yeah. And they're going to expand the lottery too. Like there's going to be a lot of changes.
Yeah.
If indeed this happens, and it does look like it is headed in that direction. Do you have any? Obviously, it'll be the Seattle SuperSonics. You would think if that happens.
Yes. I think that's.
Have you seen any of the names like that have been thrown out there? Like, are you in on like the Las Vegas? Like,
how about the Las Vegas Strip?
I don't know about that.
No good. Okay.
No. Like I've seen dealers thrown out there. I've seen outlaws thrown out there. I don't know. I don't have any thoughts, but I can tell you I don't really like any of the names.
Yeah, I don't think it. I mean, it's weird because there's been so much gambling problems around sports lately and around the NBA. It seems weird to be leaning into that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there with the team name. I love following that kind of stuff. I'll be interested to see what the logo looks like and all that. Okay, tournament is going on.
We never talked about our brackets. No one cares about the whole bracket. We never revealed our Final Fours last week. Is yours still intact?
My Final Four is still intact.
Okay, because you went all chalk. No, you didn't go all chalk because Florida's already lost.
Yes, I have Houston in there. So my Final Four is still, on the right track. I've got Houston, Duke, Arizona, and Michigan. I went
in the final.
I went in the Final Four.
But in the final game?
And then in the final game, I have Houston over Arizona.
Okay.
So I think Arizona's the best team, and I wanted to pick them, but I also try to win the bracket pool. So if you pick Arizona and 30% of the people have Arizona, then you have to be better on everything else than the other 30% of the bracket.
Right.
Where if you take Houston and Houston wins, there might only be 2 or 3%, and you only have to be better than that. So I went Houston, although I don't think Houston's the best team.
So I was a little bolder on my picks than you. My Final Four is still intact. I have 1 seed, 2 2s, and a 3 in the Final Four. And the first thing I did was write an Arizona national champion because I do think they're the best team. It's a single elimination tournament, so whatever. If it were like a NBA style, like 7-game series kind of stuff, I'd feel pretty confident in the Arizona pick. But you can't be confident about anything in a single elimination tournament. But I've got Arizona, Iowa State, UConn, which I don't feel good about, and Illinois. And then I've got Arizona over Illinois in the final game.
Well, it's going to be a very fun Sweet 16 tonight because I don't know if you've seen who your boys at Arizona are playing against. Tonight
A is a primo game for my bracket, and it's a primo game for my fandom, and those two things are in conflict with Arizona, Arkansas against each other. It's a throwback, by the way, to I can't remember whether it was Elite Eight or Final Four, but back in the day, Arkansas, Arizona, Corliss Williamson, Khalid Reeves, shout out to those guys. Arkansas beat Arizona on their way either to the national title or the national title game. Maybe it was I can't remember whether it was 94 or 95. They went title game back to back. Throw back to that. It's also a primo scouting night for the range where the Grizzlies are going to pick if they don't jump up.
Amazing.
Because you have Darius Acuff of Arkansas and Braden Burries of Arizona head to head. And then in the other game, I can't believe these games are on at the same time I can't believe they have them side to side, but they do. And it's Illinois, Keaton Wagler, Houston, Kingston Flemings. So maybe the top 4 guards in the draft, setting aside Darren Peterson, certainly 4 of the top 5 guards going head to head in those games.
I'm fascinated in the Kingston Flemings versus Keaton Wagler matchup. I think that's going to be a great game.
Well, to me, I mean, to see them both in the game, I don't know how much head to head they're going to go because I think they're going to throw these upperclassmen guards. They get 2 senior guards who are draft worthy. Houston does. And I think Houston's.
But they may not go head to head in terms of offense, defense,
one on one,
but they're going to go blow for blow offensively because they're the engines, right? Yeah. So I think that it's going to be a really fun game to watch, and I'm especially excited to see Wagler against the Houston defense, which is like incredibly physical,
right?
Almost more physical than a lot of NBA defenses.
I mean, you could say throw Tugler on him some like that could happen because Michigan threw Lindeberg on him, and that really slowed him down.
They probably will. Yeah. So that's such a fun game. I'm really excited about that. And then there's some like back end, maybe Grizzlies second pick type guys too.
Yeah. But seeing Acuff guarded by either Burries or Jaden Bradley at Arizona, or even Korchenkov, who's a really good defender, like that's a real test of Darius Acuff.
Mm-hmm.
And even the other games got some stuff, right? I really like, Dalen Swain's a guy who could be interesting for the Grizzlies, and that against Purdue. I don't really like Bennett Sturts as a Grizzlies guy, but maybe they do. I don't know. There's a guy for Nebraska I really like with that second round pick if he comes out, but I don't think he'll come out. Peyton Sandifort who I think is a really, really good shooter.
Yeah. So, like, there's
all kinds of guys.
Draft guys all over the board. And then Friday, you have Cam Boozer in action against St. John's. Maybe I'm just being a negative Alabama fan here, but Alabama's front court is not good. And those Michigan NBA prospects, whether it's Morris Johnson, Lendenborg, they're Mara, they're just going to eat against that Alabama front court, I think.
But this is wild. Every team left, there's Sweet 16. 15 of the 16 teams left have a player solidly projected in this draft. The only one that doesn't really is Michigan State.
Yeah.
If you believe the mock drafts.
Yeah. Who's Purdue?
Braden Smith. I don't. He's not on my list. He's not on my list because for the Grizzlies, I'm not interested. But he's projected as a second round pick, pretty universally.
Well, anyway, basically every single game is going to have NBA draft guys in it. Is the point in the Sweet 16? I think the Michigan front court's going to probably put a bullying on Alabama. The Duke St. John's game is really fun.
Zuby Ejiofor and Cam Boozer, that's a really interesting matchup for draft stuff.
And then at the end, it's a real shame, the nightcap on Friday between Tennessee and Iowa State, that Joshua Jefferson, who's one of the guys I like.
Is he definitely out still?
I don't know the answer to that, but it seems unlikely. But you'll also have Ament in that game, and, I'm not as high on him, but he is one of the guys that's in the range potentially if the Grizzlies do not move up. So lots of fun college basketball to watch this weekend. Before we get out of here, there's more to life than basketball. Chris, what did you do this week?
I had the whole family together. My daughter came over from Chicago for a few days. My wife got back from her trip to Europe. So we had the whole family together. We had a birthday dinner for my wife at a nice Laotian restaurant in Minneapolis that was on the New York.
What do you order at a place like that?
I mean, it's similar to Thai food. We had a papaya salad. We had a beef lob. We had some really good basil, like chicken wings that had like fried jalapeno, sort of clustered in a little nest with them. That was real yummy. We had a fried tofu dish. I had a tamarind whiskey sour. It was quite tasty with my dinner. So we had a nice dinner, family dinner. And then my wife and I went to see a movie the next night, which we both loved, but we hadn't seen in more than 20 years. It's hard to see, but there was a theater in Minneapolis showing it. Matewan, which is a movie from the late 80s, directed by John Sayles, a fictionalized version story about a West Virginia coal mining strike in the 1920s. That was a good time.
Not as much going on for me. Baby Hill under the weather again. No fun. I mean, the kids come back from daycare, they're just sick all the time. It's just going to be, I've accepted it. It's opening day in baseball today. As a baseball fan, I'm very excited. It should be fun. It happened. Well, the first game was last night between the Yankees and the Giants. Whatever. It was on Netflix.
Who won?
The Yankees.
Oh, that's no good.
Yeah, no good. It was on Netflix. Netflix, in my opinion, is doing too much with some of these sports broadcasts. Like, it's just, I think the NBA on NBC has actually they've done a pretty good job this year.
I agree. Yeah.
But, Netflix has dabbled with the NFL, and now they dabbled with baseball, and it was just, they had too much. They had Bert Kreischer, like, leading the teams out. Like, come on, man. Just, like, let's keep it to baseball a little bit. So there is that. And then I want to go see Project Hail Mary this week.
Oh, you still haven't seen that? Yeah.
I really want to go see it. I as I said before.
Was that since the last pod? Yeah, my son and I saw that.
Yeah, you didn't talk about that.
My son and I went to see that at a Riverview Theater in the Longfellow neighborhood in Minneapolis, nice old neighborhood theater. And we went to a late matinee, and it was jam-packed of people waiting to get in the late matinee. It was jam-packed people leaving the early matinee. And when our screening was over, it was jam-packed in the lobby, people waiting to come in for the night screening. It's a hit, and it's quite good.
I obviously don't want any spoilers.
It's a little long,
not that
but
you
quite
would
good.
do that. You're a movie expert, but I've heard that the main character, like that it from other people that had read the book, that it was portrayed pretty well. Like, he was the eternal optimist in this situation that existed that was, like, obviously dire, and they thought that it was, pretty well portrayed to the book. Did you read the book?
I did not read the book. Okay. Can't compare it to the book. You got me on that.
Well, listen,
Mister, I've read the book.
This is my only opportunity I'm ever going to get to do this. So Hell yeah, man. I get to give Chris a hard time for not being the one who reads.
But I thought Ryan Gosling was very good. It's a little bit, to me, it's reminiscent a little bit of like the Tom Hanks Castaway situation. Like instead of a volleyball, he's got like some sentient piece of stone he's talking to, but it's sort of a one-man operation for a lot of the movie.
My one thing I'm super curious about, and we might be doing too much Project Hail Mary talk, but is how the alien looks. That's not a spoiler. Like
one of the good things about the movie,
one
of the good things about this movie broadly, and this applies to this, but broadly, is that a lot of the effects are handcrafted.
Okay.
It's old school, like people with their hands have built things, you know, it's not all computer generated. And that gives it a real interesting sort of flavor and sort of this tactile sort of feel to it that I think is great. And so that applies to the space creature, but it applies to all kinds of other stuff too, that the whole thing feels like people with their hands made things, which is good.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. I'm going to try to get out sometime this week and catch it. So, all right, that'll do it for us this week. We'll be back next week to talk Grizzlies pod again. Remember, you can get your tickets to the Daily Memphian Roundtable, or I think it's donation preferred to go to the Daily Memphian Roundtable March the 31st, Wiseacre downtown. It'll be a great time. We'll see you then.